everybody. Now, this is really weird because normally I'd be standing there and I could be able to see you and go, oh, this is working, or is it not? So I'm going to rely on the lovely AV crew to do their job best of all and to signal me somehow if nobody can hear anything. But let me just start with an apology that's not an apology. I was supposed to be in that room with you lot, standing on a stage, talking to you, eating biscuits, that kind of thing. But I live in Northland, which is the very, very top of New Zealand, if we've got anyone in the room who's not local. And what I've learnt in the last 6 months is every single time I try and go to the best island, stand in the South Island, and do anything, I get stuck there for an extra day. Now, in this case, Sunday this week is my youngest daughter, my 5-year-old's 5th birthday. And if we're going to look at the risk model here, as the consequences of me getting that wrong and being in the wrong part of the country and on the wrong island, then, oh, I've got music. Do you not have music? Don't know. Oh, this is exciting. But I don't know what just happened there, but good, there was music. Anywho, so sorry I'm not there in person, but you'll understand because if you've ever tried to stand between a 5-year-old and cake, you wouldn't do it either. So who am I? My name's Laura. I have been many, many things. Some of you have met me before, some of you haven't. That's cool. Doesn't really matter. But I live in that weird space between software development and security. I've been everything from in AI and robotics and counter-terrorism and radiation monitoring in CERN through to being a penetration tester. And now I run SafeStack, which started as a consultancy many, many years ago and is now a product company. But I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about a bit of an adventure I had and something I learned, so something maybe you could learn from and maybe something you could bring back to your teams or some people you know. So it all started in Georgia, of all places. Now, one of the weird things I've been doing the last couple of years is going to a lot of software development conferences. So I love security conferences. You lot are my people. This is my community. But what I do lives in two worlds, and so I have to try and find both. And this year I ended up in Georgia. And Render is it's part music festival, part conference. It's 3,000 people in Georgia. There are music events and also talks, and it's a thing. You should definitely go to one of these events. But they gave me the opportunity to run a workshop. Now, bear in mind that Render's main audience are UX developers and software developers. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, we'll run a workshop. Sure. Great. So here's the first mistake I'm going to share with you. I assumed that nobody at a UX conference cares about security because, UX people aren't in the room with you right now. They've got other things to care about. Big mistake. So over the course of 7 hours, we taught 2 workshops back to back, having sold out the maximum capacity room at 180 people per class. And so we did the most intense day of security training I've ever given, myself and Carly, who you may have met out in the foyer today. And we connected with a whole group of UX engineers that, it turns out, started to see that security was just like their world and suddenly felt like this was something they could do. And I was a bit confused because this was not normally what's supposed to happen. It's supposed to be the people who just write the code, right? And they're the only ones who really do this stuff. The other thing I got wrong was I assumed that big companies already have their act together with application security. Well, we sell enough vendor tools now, right? And we spend literally billions of dollars a year as a community on AppSec tools, from web application firewalls to static analysis, dynamic analysis, you name it. There is a magic box you can buy. But inside that room and inside rooms since then, I've been connecting with people from all sorts of companies you will have heard of, like Nike and PagerDuty, and all of these very big organizations. And I came in with the assumption that they know what they're doing. Turns out, nobody does. We spend a lot on devices. We put together programs like Security Champions and all of these nice things. But actually getting them to stick, getting there to be culture change, getting there to be a point where an engineering team brings security into what they consider high quality software takes a lot more than a magic device with a big price tag. In fact, what we're finding is that very, very few organizations have actually managed to bring security into their development culture. It's just not happening. We're spending a lot of money, we're spending a lot of hours, we're creating a lot of findings, but it is not making behavioral change. Now, I'm not here to tell you don't click on links, that kind of behavioral change. I'm talking about how on earth do we make sure that in software, security is balanced in there the same way that we already do usability, accessibility, scaling, performance. So I took those bits and pieces, those mistakes I'd already made that UX folks didn't care and that the big companies didn't care either because they already had it together, and I put myself through hell. Whether you believe it or not, I'm actually deeply introverted, and I find conference speaking is fine, but anything that's permanent, this permanent record of me saying things, makes me feel deeply uncomfortable. I think I'm saying I'm a bit weird. And I was like, oh gosh, well, maybe we could do something. Maybe we could make some content and put it out there. Now, for the record, I'm not talking about the commercial content that SafeStack does. I'm not here to talk about that today. I'm talking about stuff that I do as a project around it all. Things I do for fun, maybe. Things I do because I think it needs to happen. And I have a track record of doing these kind of things, and many of you do too. The research is being presented at this conference for many of you. So I assumed that making content was hard, and perhaps I wasn't qualified to do this. So spoilers, many, many hours later, and there are literally dozens of videos, and turns out making content isn't that hard. And all we need to do is actually start making it. Now, I'm going to tell you why this matters. So I started thinking we've got big companies and small companies who aren't doing AppSec. We have a whole range of roles who are interested that we previously never connected with. And content making isn't hard. So why is this failing? Why is it when I go to a conference over anywhere in the world? So conferences have ranged from We Are Developers in Europe, which is 14,000 engineers in one conference. It's mind-blowing. To places like that conference in the US, to DDD in Perth, Australia, which if you haven't been to, try and get a ticket. It's an incredible conference. Why is it we have all these great conferences, all these great events, all these great resources from things like OWASP, the OWASP top 10s, not just the common vulnerabilities, but the one for LLMs, the cheat sheets, the books, the playgrounds, the tools. There are literally hundreds of OWASP tools that could do wonders in each team that we come across. Why don't they know about it? Why is OWASP still something that we only talk about in security circles? And that's the fourth mistake that I made. I assumed that perhaps people didn't care. And actually, it turns out our biggest blocker in application security isn't a lack of resources. It isn't a lack of message. It isn't a lack of skills. It's a lack of being able to get the message out to the right people. One of the things I really want to encourage us to do as a result of today is not talk to the person next to you. Well, actually talk to them. That would be weird. You've come to a conference, you should probably talk to them. But go find some other people who aren't in that room today and connect with them. Because we have spent a lot of time doing a lot of talks to the wrong audiences, and all these wonderful resources aren't being used. And they're not being used, and they're not being updated with the reflections and the opinions and the experience of the people who can get the most from them. So what does this have to do with 1 hour of AppSec in a 30-minute talk? Don't worry, I'm not going to go over. Well, I very flippantly said to the head of security at PagerDuty, I said, well, what if we could get everyone, all 30 million people in software development, to do just 1 hour of security every sprint? So if you take a sprint to be about 80 hours of effort, now you do lots of things in that 80 hours. You have meetings, you have the workload you actually do. What if we gave just 60 minutes? And for most of us, 60 minutes is, we waste that amount every day. I think, to be honest, I've wasted that much this week easily trying to chase Pokemon on Pokemon Go from my desk because there's a little spawn spot right outside my window. But that's just me. So what does it look like if we tried to get 30 million people to do 1 hour of AppSec every sprint without it being a big deal and without them needing a specialist there, so they could do it all on their own? And so we started an experiment. There's an experiment that's still running and that you can get involved in. So what does it look like? Well, every 2 weeks, we send out a little newsletter. Now, I can't believe that the world has got to the point where newsletters is the way to communicate with people now, but apparently it is because social media got ruined. So we send out a newsletter. And in that newsletter, there are a whole bunch of things. So what you're seeing on screen here is part of Sprint 6. So we have a little intro video. We have some explainer videos of what's going on, some watch-alongs, and we give away templates. The idea is you can spend 60 minutes, no more, no less, doing security and make a measurable change in what you're doing. So what do we provide as that? So there's no cost, none at all, and there will not be. OneHourAppSec is a free initiative, and it will remain so. And if you want to get involved and help out, please give me a shout. I would love to have some extra helpers. So we have some explanations. So those are videos that tell you about a thing. Now, I don't mean telling you the whole potted history of a topic, because that's just boring for everyone involved. But it's about getting you the exact details you need, like the minimum viable information, so that you understand enough to care. Then we have a few interviews. So if there's somebody who's much smarter than we are, we find them and we interview them. And so if you're sat in that room, go, oh, I have something to share, I'm an expert on something, come talk to me or come talk to Carly. We would love to interview you for this and get you in front of development teams all around the world, just so that we can share some perspectives that aren't our own. We have watch-alongs and demos. Now, if you've ever done a demo on stage or a demo on video, you'll know that these things are fraught and the demo gods are vengeful. But what we will do is we'll take a task that we've suggested that they do in 10 minutes and we will walk them through it. Why do we do that? Because proving that you can actually do it in that time frame and showing someone the way is really easy. And because we're doing it in a reusable format, we can scale this. So if you're currently in a team and you've got, 100 engineers, you're not going to be able to walk around and walk every single one of them through it. So we do it this way. Now, is it perfect? No. Do sometimes the people who are watching these videos go, I know how to do this better? Absolutely they do. Do they send us emails and tell us that? Yes, they do. Do I care? No, not that much. Because actually that means they're engaging. Because if they can show me something better, I'm learning too. We provide templates. Now, while there is a lot of uniqueness about each of the organizations we work for, there's also a lot of commonality. We don't need to do things from scratch each time. We don't need to pay a consultancy firm $20,000 to give us a template for a thing. Believe it or not, it has been done many times before. In the age of AI, the most important thing to remember is that information is now so common you can't walk in any direction without tripping over massive piles of it. What has value to you now is not information. It is the organization of that information and then turning it into actions you can do. And that's where templates are really powerful. Again, this isn't a commercial thing. We give it out on the internet. I expect my templates will turn up in all sorts of places over time, and yours will too if you choose to contribute. We give a whole range of links. So kudos and hat tip to Nick Malcolm if he is in the room. If he isn't, then you should go make friends with him. He's super lovely. Because people like him, the folks at GitLab, they write really good tutorials on how to do things like run the security controls on your source code repository. So sharing those links, we don't actually have to pretend it's us that invented everything. Sometimes the most useful thing we can do in application security is help find the things that already exist and get them in front of the right eyes. So what have we covered so far and where are we going next? Well, my fifth mistake was I thought, there isn't that much to cover, right? There's, OWASP vulnerabilities and bits and pieces. Oh my goodness, was I wrong. Now, if you've ever been unfortunate enough to read the NIST framework, well, there's 430 odd controls in that. If you read ISO, you can easily turn that into 100. If you went and just looked at PCI DSS, which is arguably one of the smaller ones, that's still about 12. And you could probably pull those out into a lot more if you tried to break them down. So I created a calendar. With the help of my trusty friend ChatGPT, because seriously, if you're not using it, come on, use things that help make your life more efficient. I was like, well, okay, cool. What are the topics we could cover here? And so this is the first 12 sprints. That's 24 weeks of OneHourAppSec. We've done everything from tracking our security debt and our assets and our systems to talking about and planning for incidents, securing our library choices and making good choices, giving away checklists for how to do that. And we're moving now into threat modeling, code review, all of the things that we know our dev teams need to do. But the focus of this isn't to say, hey, you should be doing it, you should feel bad. It's to say, hey, let's make this easy for you. So that over 24 weeks, then 12 hours of security is done by each engineer. Now, over the course of the year, that's a phenomenal amount of security that's happened. That's several solid weeks of security action, not just reading, not just watching a conference talk, but action that will happen across all the organizations. So what we're aiming to do with this is bring these actions into every single bit of our life cycle, and in ways that encourage folks to not just learn about it and understand it and see a magic trick and go, oh, that vulnerability is cute, I should look at that, but to do it in a practical way where they can see the small change that they can make and how that can be applied to their team. So, our next mistake. How many of you were sat there and thinking, well, an hour is a really long time. You can get a lot done in an hour. Well, spoilers, you can't. Well, this is what we learned. An hour feels like a very, very long time when you know what you're doing, when you can get started quickly, when you can focus all of your energy in one go. But I would love to set you a challenge. Next time you're at your desk, I want you to try and figure out how many hours of uninterrupted time do you actually get to spend in a 2-week period. For me, it was startlingly low. And so when we're talking about cultural change in application security, whether you're using OneHourAppSec as a model or something else, I want you to remember every time you're asking for a bit of time, that an hour is a phenomenally long time and very hard to get all at once. And you actually can't fit that much into it. It's a real dissonance between what you can achieve and what it feels like. So what happened when we launched it? Well, it's been going, we're on sprint. We've just released sprint 7, so sprint 8 is coming in the next week or so. So we're about 16 weeks in. We have 196 organizations around the world who are participating, ranging between organizations with just 5 people in to our biggest, which has several thousand. And what we started getting were emails like this. This is a quote from one of the, turns out, groups that had signed up. So what was going on is the organization had taken OneHourAppSec, and every 1 week they're doing half of it. So they're doing 1 hour over 2 weeks in 30-minute chunks, and they do it as a team. And so what they do is they watch the videos, they use the templates, and they move the team forward. Now, for me, this is an incredibly positive sign of where we can all go with application security. It is not about education anymore. It's not just about saying, hey, you need to do this, you should feel bad. This has been on the OWASP top 10 for 20 years. No, what we need to do is make it so easy that a team of people will devote 30 minutes together and get something done. And if they can't get something done, then what ways can we enable them to get something done? Because that is where the change is. The change isn't in awareness. The change is in behavior and action. My last mistake that I'm going to come to is assuming that we could do this alone. Now, SafeStack is a company. We do things, we sell things, that's cool. But I'm really mission-driven, and if you've met me in person, you'll know this is true. If you don't know me, ask around. Somebody will tell you that I'm irritating. The biggest problem with OneHourAppSec isn't building the thing. It's getting people to know it even exists. As I said at the start, there's so much noise, there's so much information. So if you are looking for something to spend a little bit of time on that you think could help a whole bunch of teams, big and small, all around the world, then get involved. Come chat to me and the team, drop me an email, talk to Carly on the booth, she'll grab some details, and come and contribute. If you aren't in the place where you want to contribute, that's cool too. But share the noise. Now, I'm going to be really honest with you. I do not like having to do the thought leadery thing, but I have to. I run a company. And folks will say to me, oh, Laura, you're everywhere. Why are you everywhere or all at once? And that's because attention spans are small. And my reach, as loud as it can seem sometimes in New Zealand, is tiny in the world. And so instead of me or my little tiny company trying to do this on our own, I would love to bring us all together to do this. So if we all lend our tiny little spheres of influence and spread something, it becomes powerful, it becomes loud. We, as a country, we don't have the budgets, we don't have the resources or the brand names to do big change that, people recognize on a global level on our own. Nobody can. So come and help out, find out more and help. So how can you do that? Let's be very specific. So you can sign up and you can spread the word at OneHourAppSec.com. While that is part of the SafeStack website, it is completely free. It is not related to our core product at all. It is there as a resource we share with the community. You can find all of the previous sprints there, and every time something new is released, we put it out to the mailing list and onto that website and our social channels. If you look at this and you're like, yeah, I've got an idea, I would like to do something, come talk to us and we will have you on board. The next thing you can help us do is we're also doing a bit of a survey. Now, this is a terrible URL, but some of you will take photos because you're very, very diligent, and you should do that. And some of you will follow up on social media because I'm going to post that link. Now, this is it's like 5-6 questions maximum. It's tiny. It's going to take you less than 3 minutes of your life. And it's asking folks to tell us how many people are in their organization, how many build software, and how many do security. And it's really simple. What we're trying to understand is what is the dev to security ratio in software, and where does that ratio change? Is it by geography? Is it by industry? Is it by organization size? Now, why are we doing this? Because that data matters. If you build a system, if you build an approach to AppSec that's based on the idea that everyone has a team, or everyone has a person, or that the average number of developers in an organization is X, and that data isn't true, then nothing you will do will work. All of the resourcing, your expectations that what can I do with an hour will all fall over. So if you could help us spread the word and get us some more data, that would be wonderful. Please spread it wide. We're looking for global information. So if you have friends overseas, be that person who gives the gift of a survey for Christmas. We'd be very grateful. Finally, if you want to talk to me about this project or anything else that I'm involved with, anything that involves getting application security behavior into all organizations, big or small, regardless of budget, especially in this climate where none of us have any budget to play with, then please do reach out to me. If you want some free training for your team, if your team is not doing any AppSec training, we give it away free of charge. No tricks, no gimmicks. You can use that QR code, or you can go chat to Carly in the lobby and get started. There is no reason why we can't get the world, all 30 million software engineers out there, doing 1 hour of security every single sprint. And it doesn't need to be painful, and it doesn't need to get in the way. All it's going to take is us working together and sharing these things in really action-focused ways. Thank you so much for having me today. I believe I may have just got you back onto time a little. I'm running a couple of minutes early. And there's no opportunity to give me questions live in the room, so I'm really sorry for that. But do reach out to me either on social media or via Carly in the lobby or via the organisers, and I will be more than happy to have a chat with you. Thanks for having me, everyone.
I am a super genius.